Well, good morning. And let me extend my welcome to worship this morning. My name is Adam Hildebrandt, and I get to be one of the pastors here at LVfirst. It's such a joy to be in worship with all of you, whether you're joining us here in person or you're joining us online on this second Sunday of Advent, this opportunity for us to move towards Christmas, to begin to focus our hearts and minds around all that Christmas brings to us, around celebrating, and around remembering what God has done in our midst. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about this idea of ornamental. That there are these certain mentalities that we're invited to bring to Christmas, these certain gifts that God gives to us. And sometimes when we think about them, we don't think about them as gifts. Like we talk about hope and peace and joy and love, and we're like, okay, yeah, those are all good things, those are great, but how do they affect my daily life? Like, what do I do with those things? They're great concepts, they're fun to think about, but like, what does that mean in my day-to-day life? But these are gifts from God that help us to experience the true wonder, the true joy, the true peace of Christmas. They invite us to experience Christmas more fully when we engage with these things, when they become a part of who we are, when we're able to hang these on the tree of our lives, these different ornaments, hope and peace and joy and love. Because here's the truth. Christmas is full of unknowns, right? Christmas is full of unknown things. There's lots of things that we don't know yet. There's lots of gifts to be opened. There's lots of parties to be experienced. You know, we have lots of things that we have questions about. Unknowns fill us with a sense of anxiety, a little bit, of worry, of dread. Am I going to get invited to that party? And if I do get invited to that party, what should I bring? And if I bring this, like, what should I wear? Is it like more of a fun, tacky Christmas sweater type of thing? Or is it like a dress-up thing? I'm not sure what I'm going to wear to that Christmas party or to that Christmas service. Like, what do I do in this situation? And we think about all of these things. You know, what if that person at the work party that I go to, you know, that one person that I don't really want to spend the whole night talking to, really wants to talk to me that night? Or what if I'm at my spouse's work party, like I fly out to LA or something, and I find that some bank thieves have taken over the tower, and in the greatest turn of events, the greatest Christmas movie ever, what if I have to save the whole tower? Am I the only one who looks for the air ducts when they walk into a building? Come on, I know some of you look for the air ducts, just in case you got to pull a Bruce Willis. Just in case you got to do that, you look. All of these unknowns, you know, you're not sure. You're thinking about all of these possibilities, all of these things that you're wondering about, like what might happen, what might happen, what might happen. Will my decorations be enough? Will the lights that I put out in my yard someday? I hope I put lights out in my yard. Will the lights be enough to keep up with the neighbors? Will my gifts be as good as the other gifts that my kids are going to see online from their friends? We got all these unknowns in our lives. Whose family are we going to go visit on which day? And how's that going to make them feel? We have all these things that we worry about, all these unknowns that we're concerned with. And for many of the unknown things in the world, it causes us to do some things that we wouldn't normally do. Especially in a season of stress and anxiety where we're trying to control what we can control. I read an article the other day about people hacking into their loved ones' Amazon accounts to research their search history so that they know exactly what to get them. Some of you are like, that's a brilliant idea. You're welcome. No, seriously, I mean, like, come on, just ask a person. Stop hacking into their accounts. Just go, hey, what do you want for Christmas? Or if you share an Amazon account like me and my wife do, she's already knows what I want for Christmas because I look at those things all the time. But people are doing all of these things to figure out what their loved ones want. Or an analog version of this, like analog means before the internet, guys. I just want to, help out our young people up here. An analog version of this is something that we used to do, and I don't know if kids still do it. I haven't seen my kids do it, but maybe that's because they don't want me to see them do it. When we were kids and there were Christmas presents under the tree, we would wait until nobody's around, and we'd walk over there, and we would do what? Shake them. Yeah. You pick up that gift and you shake it. And you hope it makes noise, because if it makes noise, it's something good. But if it's completely quiet, you know that it's clothes. And the worst thing ever, it could be socks, right? When I was a kid, there was nothing worse than getting socks. And now as a 45-year-old adult male, I'm like, please get me socks. I would love some socks. That would be amazing. I'm like, good socks? You know the difference between good socks? Right. Anyway, I love socks. But we would go and we would shake these gifts. And the question is, to what end? What are you hoping to get out of shaking the gift? Are you hoping to have some sense of what that thing is, so that, in a couple of weeks when you open the gift, you already have an idea of what it might be? Really, what we're looking for when we shake that gift, when we look on our loved one's search history, we're looking for a sense of control. In the middle of all of the unknowns, we're looking for some sense of control. And we do this all the time in all sorts of different ways, looking for air ducts to make sure that I have an exit strategy for if I have to help with the people who have taken over the Nakatomi Tower. I'm looking for some sense of control. Because during the holidays, especially during Christmas season, our anxiety goes way up, because we realize that there are lots of things that are unknown. There are lots of things that we don't have control over. And for the people in the first story of Christmas, the people who experienced that Christmas where Jesus came to earth, they experienced this loss of control in a way that I think we might struggle to understand. I mean, as a control freak, I always sympathize when I read the story of Christmas with Joseph. When I read Joseph's story and I hear about what took place in his life and the things that he had to deal with, I start to get a little bit anxious for him. I mean, the guy's just planning his life, right? He's just trying to do the things that you do. He wanted to have a life, have a spouse, had the perfect plan, perfect little family, nice house just outside of Nazareth, just outside the town limits, just nice picket fence that he could put up lights on. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this year a gently used donkey in the driveway. Something nice, you could put a bow on it, make you feel special. But all of it goes sideways when he gets some really unexpected news. And for those of you who are planners out there, unexpected news is the worst thing. When Cousin Eddie pulls up his RV into the front of the house. When you're on the flight to France and you realize, I've left something at home. What could it be? For all of you planners out there, I realize just even talking about this raises your anxiety level a little bit. You're feeling it here and now. I like this definition of anxiety I heard recently from a pastor. He said this: anxiety is a feeling of inner unrest, that sense that things just aren't right, and worry that is fueled by fear of outcomes that we may never experience. It's an emotional thief that robs us of today's peace in anticipation of tomorrow's problems. It robs us of today's peace in anticipation of tomorrow's problems. We worry about those things that are going to take place tomorrow and the day after and down the road, and we're worried about, what do I do in this circumstance? What do I do with this? What do I do with that? All these things that haven't even happened yet, and we're already planning for them, and our minds are already racing, and we're already thinking about all the stuff, and what do I do with this, and what do I do with that experience? It's a fear of the unknown that all of us try to avoid. And our world is full of anxiety. Because we have so much information at our fingertips, because we can know things that happen in real time, we all are worried about so many different things. The statistics around anxiety are off the charts. You can look them up when you get home on that little thing that I just said was causing your anxiety. But you can find them out. John Gordon, the author, talks about anxiety in this way. He says that the root word of anxious really means to pull apart or to separate, to divide, to be in pieces. And so many times we feel divided from people, divided from the people that we love most. We feel separated from the people that we should be in relationship with. And more importantly, we feel separated from God. The people in the first Christmas story had experienced 400 years of silence. They felt separated from God. And this news of God's coming breaks in a unique way and makes them ask all sorts of questions. Because their lives, like our lives, feel scattered and in pieces. And we don't have peace in our lives because our lives feel like just pieces of the life that we want. Our Christmas doesn't feel like a time of peace because we have pieces of the Christmas that we really want. And the root of all of that anxiety, the root of all that pulling apart, the root of all that pieces is this uncertainty. The reality is, the only thing that's certain in our world is uncertainty. So how do we deal with that? What do we do with that? Because Joseph is just like us in many regards. Listen to a little bit of his story. It's in Matthew chapter 1. It starts this way. Now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. So, if you read the other accounts of the Christmas story, this angel shows up to Mary, says, hey, great news, you're going to have a baby. And she's like, how's that good news? But she says, okay, if this is God's plan, if this is the way that this works, I'm in. And at some point, either she has to tell Joseph or somebody else tell Joseph. We don't know how it happens, but Matthew just tells us that Joseph knows that this is the situation. Can you imagine the myriad of feelings and emotions that Joseph would have run through? Anger, frustration, betrayal, all of these different feelings that he would have had. And his first response is this. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man, maybe even a little self-righteous, I don't know, at times, and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. Joseph's response to the unknown situation in his life is to dismiss it quietly. And I think in so many ways, we're so much like Joseph. We don't want to deal with all of those things. We don't want to deal with all of those feelings. We don't want to talk about this stuff. So we're going to just dismiss it quietly. Many of us lead lives of quiet desperation, and we're full of anxiety and worry all the time, and we never, ever talk about it. Because we don't want to be perceived in any sort of way. I mean, Joseph's doing the same thing. Like he's running through all the scenarios. What if people think this, and what if people think that, and what about the life I had all planned, and what's going to happen next, and what's going to happen to her, and what's going to happen to me, and how am I going to find another spouse, and how am I going to find another house, and how am I going to find another used donkey? I had it all planned, and now my plan is all messed up. And now my response is to dismiss it quietly, to numb out in some way, to turn on the TV, to check out, to self-medicate, to get angry with everyone around me, to turn into a little bit of a Grinch. We dismiss these feelings quietly instead of dealing with them. We try to cope with them. We quietly try to cope with all of these feelings that are going on inside of us. And those feelings, that worry, that anxiety, that fear, adds up. Remember, a number of years ago, Caleb was about 6 months old, heading into the Christmas season. And when you work at a church, the Christmas season is busy. I mean, it's really busy. all good, but really busy. And so we had a 6-month-old, and we had the Christmas season coming, and we were getting ready for a ski trip right after Christmas. We were taking some students, about 100 students on charter buses up to West Virginia to go skiing. And if you take 100 students anywhere, it should fill you with anxiety. But if you take them skiing, it should fill you with more anxiety. And so all of these things are compounding in my life. And one night, I'm laying in bed, sound asleep, and I jump up out of bed, and I can't breathe. And Michelle's like, "What is wrong with you? Go back to bed." And I was like, I can't breathe. I literally feel like I'm dying, you know. And she's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, I think I'm having a heart attack. I don't know what to do. And she's like, "Well, maybe we should go to the hospital." And I was like, okay. So we got in the car, we went to the hospital, packed up our 6-month-old to go to the hospital. That's always fun too. So we get to the hospital, they run all these tests. They're like, you're fine. It seems like you're just having a panic attack. Like as if that's a normal thing. Like, you're fine. It seems like you're just having a panic attack. But all of these anxieties, all of these worries had built up over time. And that experience has happened other times in my life, where those feelings have built up over time. Our bodies keep the score of all of these things that we're dealing with when we try to dismiss them quietly and consistently. We'll just get rid of it. We just won't talk about it. We just won't deal with it. We won't talk about that thing that's going on in our family. We won't talk about that unknown thing. We won't talk about that worry that we have. We won't talk about that bill. We won't talk about that debt. We won't talk about all of those things. We're just not going to talk about the worries of tomorrow, even though I'm so incredibly worried about tomorrow. Joseph decides to do what so many of us do and dismiss his anxiety, his worry, his fear quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this. Now, I love the word resolved there because I don't love the English translation that they use for this. The Greek word there is enthumainomai. Say that tough word a couple of times. But it really means to ponder or to meditate on. Like, he's stewing over this. He is just running it around in his mind over and over and over and over again. It's just consumed him in a way. What do I do? How do I deal with this? Where do I go from here? What's going to happen? All of these things are just flooding through him, and he's dealing with all of these feelings. Just when he had resolved to do this, again, the NRSV leaves out this word, but the word is behold. Behold, an angel of the Lord appears to him in a dream. It says, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid. Notice the word afraid there. Do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. Behold, Joseph. In other words, let's focus on something. All of these thoughts, all of these things are stirring around in you, but let's focus on something. Because all of this worry, all of this fret, all of this fear is pulling away, keeping you scattered. Behold, an angel appeared. Look, focus. Let's deal with this thing. Jesus, later in his life, talks about this. He asks this question. He says, what can we add to our lives by worrying? Can we add even a moment to our lives by worrying? And of course, the answer is no. What Jesus wants us to realize is that worry subtracts from our lives, but attention in the right places adds to our lives. Behold and look at what really is happening. What's really going on? Or as Paul talks about it, taking every thought captive. Realize that you have control over what you focus on. Behold, an angel appears to him. It says this in verse 21, "She'll bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." That's literally what Jesus means, salvation. And all of this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you shall name him Emmanuel," which means God with us. And when Joseph awoke from his sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. Joseph is invited to do something that is so difficult for all of us. The angel of the Lord shows up, says, "Hey, focus here, Joseph. Joseph, just focus for a minute. The child's from the Holy Spirit. This is okay. And I need you to actually name that tension in your life. I need you to actually put a name to that thing that you're wrestling with. I know you're worried about this child. I know you're scared about your future. I know that you don't know what to do. But I need you to name that child." Can you imagine being in that moment? Like all of the anxiety that you're feeling around all of this stuff, all of the anger, all of the fear, all of the worry comes down to a naming. But in so many of our lives, that's the reality, is we're unwilling to name the thing that we're actually dealing with. And so we can't experience deliverance. We can't experience a sense of power over that thing because we're unwilling to name it. We just want to dismiss it quietly instead of actually naming what's going on in our life, what we're worried about, what we're fearful of, what we don't know what to do with. I mean, Jesus' name is salvation. That's the invitation for all of us, is to name that thing so that we can experience a path forward. Name the tension in our life right now. Because when we call it out, it begins to lose some power, whether that's to a trusted friend or to a mental health professional, or if that's in a journal, or if that's just crying out to God. Somehow, somewhere, we all have to name the anxieties and the tensions that we're dealing with. I mean, there are whole books of the Bible about naming the tensions in our world. Half of the Psalms are about naming the anxieties that the psalmist has. The whole book of Lamentations is just naming anxieties and worries and fears and struggles. And there's one passage in Lamentations that I really like, because it says that God's mercies are new every morning. When are they new? Every morning, right? Joseph wakes up and all of a sudden it seems like he's got a peace about this situation. He's named the thing, he's getting ready for the situation, he's preparing for it, he's got a sense of peace, he's got a sense that God is with him. All of a sudden, new mercies every morning. Most of us spend so much time worrying about tomorrow. But here's the deal. God hasn't given you grace for tomorrow. He hasn't given you the grace you need to walk through tomorrow yet. That grace comes when? Tomorrow. Right? We're so worried about tomorrow, we don't experience the grace that we have for the day. You've got what you need for today. So be willing to do the brave work of naming the difficulties, the challenges. Be honest about our struggle with control and feelings of fear, worry, and anxiety. Allow God to hear your cry. Because the good news of this story comes right at the end. Jesus came into our world and takes all of those pieces of our lives and somehow, some way brings them together and brings peace. Jesus brings peace out of the pieces of our lives. He is the Prince of Peace, the promise of peace, Emmanuel, God with us. This is the good news of Christmas. God comes to be with us. We're not alone. God is with us. Because God is with us in the good times and in the great moments and the celebrations and the presents and the pictures that are perfect for Christmas. But God is with us in the bad moments and the hard moments and the moments of worry as well. That's the good news of Christmas. God is with us. God is with us in the ER, in the attorney's office, during finals, changing diapers. God is with us in prison and on the first date and during that ugly cry that we all probably need to have. God is with us. God is with us in the carpool line and working the graveyard shift and working the 12 steps. God is with us at the office and at the gym and in therapy and doing the dishes. God is with us in traffic and at the dinner table and during chemo and in recovery. God is with us at the funeral, when we're missing someone, when it's everything that we've hoped for and when it's nothing that we would have expected. God is with us. When we're not sure we believe, when we can't sing those familiar songs, when we're frustrated, overwhelmed, betrayed, God is with us. When we feel like it's all falling apart, God is with us. Today, tomorrow, December 25th, and every day after, God is with us. The Bible tells us the Word became flesh and dwelled among us, dwelled with us. The Word didn't become a theory to be debated or a concept to be pondered or a philosophy to be discussed. The Word became a person and is with us all the time and everywhere. And God not only wants to bring peace to you, but God wants to bring peace through you in a world that needs to know that all of those pieces of their lives can find some peace somewhere through a someone. Because peace is more than the absence of conflict. It's the presence of God in our lives. It is God with us. Emmanuel. Maybe today you need to name something in your life. You need to cry out to the name that brings salvation to all of us. You need to remember that God is with you wherever you are, in whatever season you're in whatever you're dealing with, in whatever you're worried about. God is with us.